It's WrestleMania week, and WrestleMania 31 is just a few days away. So Angry Marks Podcast Network fans, just one question for you. Have you signed up for WrestleWork yet? WrestleWork is the social media destination where professional wrestling fans, promotions, and wrestlers can come together, interact, and share their passion for professional wrestling. You can sign up today for free at WrestleWork.com.
You're listening to the SmackDown RunDown on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome to the SmackDown Rundown here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. Yes, it is I, the one and only Nikolai, back again on the air for Angry Marks and the SmackDown Rundown. I had taken a little bit of time off just for personal reasons, for a hiatus, sabbatical, whatever you want to call it, but I am back just in time for the biggest wrestling weekend of the year. I don't care what company that you prefer. This is wrestling's biggest weekend. And I am joined by the one voice you have heard the past couple of weeks while I have been off. No, it is not Jordan Garber. Unfortunately, he is not joining us tonight, but it is Rob the Many joining us again. How are you, Rob?
Introduce a little chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. It is Rob the Many, as I try to get in touch with my inner Joker. The one you love to hate is back again as we run down another SmackDown.
And first and foremost, Rob, I'd like to thank you for joining Jordan for the past couple of weeks and joining me here tonight to talk about SmackDown. Thank you for filling in. You know, it's good to hear that the show didn't have to stop. Jordan didn't have to be on it alone, and I appreciate you for taking the time and filling in.
No problem, man. Anything I could do to help out Angry Marks.
And it's always good to have another voice on the air with us, talking especially about the SmackDown show, because like I've always said, not too many people or podcasts talk about SmackDown, so that's why I take pleasure in having this show not only on the airwaves but on AngryMarks.com.
Yeah, I can only think of one podcast off the top of my head that ever even talks about SmackDown at all.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good to have a show on the air, and I'm glad to have been on it for this long and to have people actually tuning in and joining us as you have been past couple of weeks, Rob. So, first and foremost, I gotta ask you, how do you feel about this whole lead up to WrestleMania for this week alone from Raw and SmackDown?
You know, I've been trying to keep a positive attitude. I've been trying not to bash WWE. But, you know, the more I see, the less I'm enthused, which is the opposite of what the WrestleMania build should be. I don't know if maybe it's just like I just gave up on trying to keep a positive feeling, but I would say the moment where my try to be happy and look at the bright side of things cracked is when I saw two adult men play tug of war on national television.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that's where you're going with that. And when it comes to WWE pay-per-views, the go-home shows, meaning the final Raw and the final SmackDown before the pay-per-view, it's their job to send us home happy and, well, since we are home, we're watching on TV, but, you know, to get us excited for the pay-per-view coming up. And generally, SmackDown always does the job way better than Raw ever can. For WrestleMania, it's kind of different because the SmackDown before WrestleMania is always half SmackDown, half WrestleMania access, and that's how it's been for the past couple of years. Now, I have a follow-up question for you, Rob. Even though this was basically half of an episode of SmackDown, do you think this still had a better job of leading into WrestleMania as opposed to Monday Night Raw?
Well, if you're going to rely on anything in WWE world today, the one thing that WWE can always outdo every other promotion in the world is production values. Mm-hmm. So basically, if you're centering around a show where you basically set up video package after video package, I mean, that's like WWE's strong point. Now, as a viewer, a SmackDown for the last couple of weeks, I will admit, there was a couple years there where I didn't watch SmackDown, pretty religiously. Kind of like everybody else, I kind of watched Raw and that was about it. But, I mean, it was kind of jarring to go from, I would say 5 to 6 matches the first week me and Jordan did it, and then second week it was like 4, and then now this week it was basically 2, and predominant recaps. So, I mean, it was a little bit trying. Not that the videos weren't good, it's just like I knew the stories, and I was trying to look at the video package with like fresh eyes and try to see like what they were see if they did anything like super like different. And then I thought the best one they did was Undertaker Bray Wyatt one, where like I thought they really took like the reference to the Johnny Cash song. And yes, they did it before, but they took it and kind of used it for the build-up clip show. And I thought that was like kind of an interesting way to kind of bring the song back and kind of reuse it. And kind of bleed it into like Bray shenanigans and stuff like that. I thought that was the best one. The one that made me kind of want to see the match the most.
It's odd because that's actually probably, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this, that's probably the match I would like to see the least.
Oh, honestly. I agree. I agree. I mean, Taker for me, since his HBK matches, I really don't care. And I mean, I'm probably the biggest CM Punk mark you'll ever meet. I think me and him are a lot alike, and there's a lot of things that I do that I could completely sympathize. More than a few friends have called me an asshole when asked about how they feel about me. So I could kind of sympathize with Punk on that. But even I had to admit that, sure, it was his Taker match okay? Yeah, sure. But I mean, I just felt like every match from HBK's 2 matches with Taker has been in decline, and yet people seem to kind of want to just kind of let Taker kind of get a pass on mediocre work. And I felt like him and Brock, if Brock didn't win, would anybody remember that match at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. But going back to what you said about Shawn Michaels, I like the 2 Shawn Michaels matches. I even like the 2 Triple H matches, and I would have let it go when it was 20-0. I would have been fine right there. And then he had to go face CM Punk and then make it 21-0. And then, alright, I'm thinking, fine, I get it. That's, you want to get it to Blackjack or whatever you want to call it. And then when they had him face Brock Lesnar, I was like, okay, fine. WrestleMania 30, this should be it. And then he loses to Brock Lesnar. He loses his first WrestleMania match ever. In 21 appearances, this being the 22nd appearance, he loses the match. I'm like, all right, this is it. This Undertaker's done. There's no way he can come back to WrestleMania because the way he left that match was not pretty. He was He was in the hospital the entire night. So to see him returning for this year's WrestleMania, it's almost like, all right, what's the point? And then as Bray Wyatt, which really had not much of a build-up. We had one pay-per-view where Bray Wyatt came out at Fastlane. That was 5 weeks ago, almost.
Yeah. I mean, basically this match is happening because the characters make sense to feud. That's about it. That's the only reason.
Yeah. And right, the characters kind of have similarities. They offset. Bray Wyatt wants to be the new face of fear. But I mean, if you're going to have Undertaker return to WrestleMania, I mean, you have Undertaker and you have Sting going to be at the same WrestleMania. And that's Sting's dream match. If you're going to bring Undertaker back, why wouldn't you have him face Sting? And fine, whatever, that's not happening. But this, and I don't want to say I'm sick of The Undertaker because it's just wrong to say because I'm not. It's just I don't really care for this particular match, Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. But going back to the video packages that you were mentioning, I would have to say I really enjoyed the Randy Orton and Seth Rollins video package that they aired when they stemmed all the way back when Seth Rollins joined the Authority over almost a year ago, and he teamed up with Randy Orton, and they went from that story from then on to the point of now, where Orton and Seth Rollins had their little problems, and now they're facing each other at WrestleMania. I actually like that video package a lot more.
And probably has the best chance of being match of the night, if I had to guess.
That, along with the ladder match, I would think.
Yeah, but see, I knew that was probably going to follow that comment, and I'll explain my position on this, and we could get this out of the way. Anytime you have to involve gimmicks, it decreases my respect for a great match. Like, you have to really go out of your way, something super spectacular to impress me if you're going to involve gimmicks, because it makes your job easier. Especially when you involve multi-men, because you could take big bumps and take basically a 25-minute nap on the outside and still be involved in the match. I get why people like them, because they're basically spot fest, but I personally like just wrestling. Like, I rarely really mark out for like hardcore matches or overly gimmick matches. The only one that I'll ever really give credit is, one, the first Money in the Bank match, because of the importance of like developing that idea. Plus, Jericho came up with the match idea, and it was a really good match. And two, the TLC match. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of those matches, on my favorites list. Just because I tend to be more of a Brett versus Shawn Michaels in an Iron Man kind of match kind of guy.
Well, you said the word spectacular, and that was exactly the word that was in my head as I was thinking of this Intercontinental Ladder match. And the backstory that they did for the video package with this match in particular, they brought it all the way back to the importance of the Intercontinental Championship being defended at a WrestleMania.
The only problem, though, Nikolai, is that they also conveniently left out the fact that the last almost 8 years, the Intercontinental title really hasn't meant it a lot.
True, but they did mention on the WrestleMania pre-show or WrestleMania Today program that aired on the WWE Network before SmackDown, Bad News Barrett was a guest on the panel, and they mentioned that for, I think, since 2005, or you'd have to, I'd have to look it up, but for many, many years, the Intercontinental Championship has changed hands.
Oh, they said it on SmackDown tonight. They said it's 14 straight. It's been 14 years since the IC belt has been successfully defended at WrestleMania.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. And they pointed out that Bad News Barrett, just 2 years ago, had lost the Intercontinental title in a pre-show, but it was still at WrestleMania. So Barrett is a victim of that happening to him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I get why people like matches like this. I guess I try not to let myself get sucked in by all the tricks of the trade on those.
Well, I can actually feel appreciation for this because we're talking about the gimmick of the match, but it's a ladder match, and a ladder match has always kind of had a staple at WrestleManias ever since WrestleMania 10. You go back to that fateful and epic, groundbreaking Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship.
Ahead of its time, too. Way ahead of its time.
So this kind of sets the tone, and this is going to be the 11th ladder match at WrestleMania. That's including the Intercontinental that started it all, and the Money in the Bank. We started off with the Intercontinental at WrestleMania 10. Then fast forward to WrestleMania 2000, where you had the Triangle Ladder match. The following year, you had the TLC match involving ladders. And then you got Money in the Bank for years and years and years. So to bring it back to the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match, I think comes full circle.
I guess. I just hope that this isn't the prerequisite spot for the Intercontinental belt going forward.
No, I have to agree with you there. But I don't think it will be, but like I said, I think it's nice that it's a ladder match, and that's the only other gimmick match, other than the Battle Royal, which I'm going to get to in a minute, is the only match with weapons that's involved at WrestleMania. There's no other hardcore or last man standing or other type of matches for WrestleMania. And I appreciate that because I get that they're saving all the gimmick matches for the following month, which is Extreme Rules.
Yeah, the Battle Royal, or as I like to call it, the clusterfuck with no buys.
And they actually broke the news on the WWE Network show that the Battle Royal, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, is now going to be contested in the kickoff show before WrestleMania. So it's not even going to be on the main pay-per-view. So that means the Battle Royal and the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team title match will both be on the kickoff show.
So technically, yes, I was right. We got a multi-tag team title match at Mania, and I also predicted that it would be on the pre-show. I just want our producer Kev to tell me that I was right. Give me my credit, Kev. Give me my credit. I want my credit.
I'm sure if there will be some sort of drop in the time to come. But yes, I actually did hear you make that prediction in a previous episode of the SmackDown Rundown. And since we're talking about this
3 weeks ago, by the way.
Yeah,
not like a week out where it was really, really obvious. I made it like right when they first did it.
But since we're talking about this, it is official. It's going to be the tag team titles on the line. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro defend the titles against the Usos, Los Matadores, and the New Day.
If you follow WWE booking, Cesaro took the pinfall tonight, so that means they're retaining, right?
Well, that's if you go by that, the win on Monday, lose on Sunday rule, which I try to ignore because I like to not think about that kind of stuff because it kind of ruins it for me. But
sorry,
let's get to the SmackDown portion of it because what we were just talking about were all the video packages that they aired that Renee Young and Byron Saxton had.
They literally
hosted.
Previewed every match, so I mean we could be here all night.
And they hosted that on during WrestleMania Access, which, you know, it's like I mentioned, they do this every year with the SmackDown for WrestleMania. So we got that half of this show out of the way. Let's get to the SmackDown half of it. And going back, speaking of the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team title match at WrestleMania, we had a Fatal 4-Way Singles match from representing the tag teams. Jimmy Uso, Big E of the New Day, Fernando of Los Matadores, and Cesaro were all in a Fatal 4-Way match. And everybody, they're all their tag team partners and managers, I guess you could say, even though El Torito is not necessarily a manager. But, you know, you had Naomi, Natalya, Xavier Woods, and El Torito, and Diego, I guess. All of them were at ringside. So the main four men in this match, I think this was a good match. This was a really good Fatal 4-Way match. We don't get too many of those matches, but I think this was very fast-paced, but it wasn't too fast for you to keep up. What did you think of this match?
It's been a while since I've seen a Fatal 4-Way. You know, I mean, since they eliminated, Elimination Chamber and a couple matches like that. I mean, you just don't see Fatal 4-Ways as much as you used to, maybe back in like the latter half of the Attitude Era. You know, I thought it was an okay match. I thought the neatest idea about this match was like the end part where, you know, they were kind of kicking each other or bumping each other into each other's finishers. Like the one spot where, somebody kicked Big E Langston with the super kick, but he hit his finisher anyways. I thought that was kind of cool, but they did kind of like a series of those moves, kind of back to back to back. The only thing that I'll revisit about my complaints about these guys is when they do go to those fast chain of moves. I don't know if you notice it at all, Nikolai, but they seem to kind of sometimes rush a little too fast, and it either ends up looking a little awkward or they botch something. They didn't do that tonight, but I'm just saying on previous occasions when they've tried to do this fast-paced ending to one of their matches, they've kind of let their timing or spacing in the ring kind of go to shit.
Yeah, I've noticed that in matches past, but I think they actually paced this one very well, especially the spot where Cesaro went to suplex Fernando from the, you know, he was standing on the ropes and Fernando was on the apron. Jimmy Uso came over to do the same, but Big E came behind, and it was like a super German vertical suplex, and it was different because we always get these kind of Tower of Doom spots in the corner, but this one was off the middle of the ropes, and I actually appreciate
Which requires a lot of balance, and whenever you're relying on a couple other people to kind of hold their position for a move like that, it could always be disastrous, if something goes wrong. I mean, I like this spot too, and I mean, it's like you said, the perfect way to reference it is a Tower of Doom kind of spot, except for being in the corner, they did it on the ropes, which has made the spot, as a knowledgeable wrestling fan, you know that's a much more, less secure place to do the spot from.
Yeah, so I appreciate that they actually did something different here. And like you alluded to earlier, the finish, we saw the backstabber on Cesaro, and
which was a sloppy backstabber, but
yeah, and I don't think Cesaro was ready for that because Fernando kind of jumped on him from behind.
You could tell by the way he reacted that he didn't know it was coming. And
Right.
You could tell by the way he took it, because he took it a lot lower than people usually take it. And I'm guessing that probably hurt a little bit more. And
Yeah,
you also noticed it because the commentator straight out called it out.
Yeah, and they said that he didn't get all of it, and it was just Cole and King on commentary, so it wasn't that much confusion. But he said they didn't get all of it, and Fernando even looked hesitant afterwards, looking at him just to make sure he was okay. But I mean, Cesaro, like a pro, went right into it. Big E picked him up for the big ending, but like you mentioned, he got super kicked by Jimmy Uso. And
he still technically hit the big ending.
Yeah, so I like that.
Is take the bump to, instead of taking it, he always takes it to the back anyways. So he just the super kick kind of just made him fall into it. So not only did he hit his finish, but then he was taken down in the match too because he got super kicked.
Which is double for Cesaro, in my opinion. If you want to look at it, if you want to think about like the force of things, it's like, all right, well, maybe the force from the super kick made Big E fall faster, and Cesaro got hit harder. You can always come up with these kind of silly ideas in your head that would actually make more sense than WWE's logic of things. But I love the way that Jimmy Uso and Fernando were kind of tossing each other over the top rope, where Jimmy finally got the upper hand, climbed the ropes, hit the big Superfly splash on Cesaro. So the Usos and Naomi get to open the show with their explosive entrance, and they end the match dancing in the ring. So I've always liked the Usos.
I thought it was interesting that Cesaro took the pinfall here. Like I said, not always. It's not a hard, fast rule because, WWE sometimes switches up the way they book. But most often, the person who takes the pinfall, you can almost count on the pay-per-view is going to be the one who wins. And I would almost guarantee that it's one of the Matadors is taking a pinfall. I'd be shocked if anybody else in this match takes a pinfall.
See, I would love to think the opposite of that. And
unless they do elimination, in which they haven't announced yet. I mean, that would make way more sense, but I don't think
they normally do that last minute. Matter of fact, they did that last year when the Usos were the tag team champions, and they defended their titles in the pre-show of WrestleMania, and it was a fatal 4-way tag team title match.
Just goes to show you how much the tag titles mean. Not a lot.
Know. And Cesaro was teaming with Jack Swagger at the time. And that match was a fatal 4-way, and at the last minute, it got changed to elimination, so can't rule that idea out. But we don't want to give any hinting of that happening because we all know, as I've mentioned this many times, WWE listens to the SmackDown Rundown, so they might just take that idea from us. We kind of just gave them that away.
Sorry, Nikolai.
But,
So, what did you think of this AJ promo? I thought she showed some of her old school personality here. Of course, with her hair pulled back, I don't know what it was, but I mean, she's hot normally, but she was extra hot tonight. And, with the bubbly kind of like smiley smile and kind of like with the bitch comments here and there, I don't know, so she was really doing it for me tonight.
I love AJ Lee. I love her character, and, for the past year where she was a heel, you always saw that out of her. Everybody loves her still. But when she comes out as a face, it's kind of hard to take it, to look at her as a babyface again, because she just has that look like she could turn either way. And then you have Paige, who's her tag team partner, kind of doing the same thing. And that's what they did in the ring here tonight on SmackDown. They were talking to each other, trying to settle their differences, and Paige, insinuated or accused her of possibly screwing her over again. And, it was a weird dichotomy between the two.
You know what the most interesting part about their kind of communicating tonight? I don't know if you caught this, but right when the Bella's music cues, if you go back and you watch Paige's reaction, now she pulls her hand away. Now ostensibly, I'm guessing she's meant to pull away and turn around for the Bellas. But the way she kind of gently brings her hand back almost makes it seem like she went in for the handshake and pulled the whole, I'm pulling my hand back and I'm going to rub it through my hair. Kind of like an old school heel tactic. I mean, that's what it looked like for me, but I know maybe what they were trying to go for, where she was just turning around for the Bellas, but I thought that exchange, more than all the rest of it, was really peculiar.
Rob, I am so glad you brought that up because I had noticed it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be the only one to notice that, but I did, and that kind of bothered me. I don't know why. It's one of those little nitpick things that gets to me.
Paige does stuff like that a lot. I mean, she's the hottest diva in the whole world, but she does a lot of little things really, really, really wrong. And I mean, and anytime you say that, of course, you get the internet trolls who are like, watch her shimmer work. She's impeccable. She knows what she's doing. Shut up. And I'm just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just because she worked at shimmer doesn't mean she is going to do everything right every single time, especially when you're trying to adjust to the way WWE does things. I'm just saying that choice, I mean, while it may in her head fit her character better, is really, really awkward considering the whole point of this promo was basically to try to squash the problems between AJ and Paige and solidify that team so they could go into the match at Mania. And I thought that one move kind of was reversed all the work they did in the promo.
Exactly. And AJ was saying, she hates losing and she knows that Paige hates losing and they need to get on the same page and take the Bellas or the Kardashians down. And Paige,
I like that line. I mean, I like the Kardashians line. But right after that, I mean, the Bellas came out. I thought they cut, a really good promo. I think they kind of, came out and did what they do best. Act like bitches who think they're better than everybody. And, if for a while there, they were kind of running roughshod and kind of putting AJ in her place for not being around. They gave a shot to Brock, which I thought was odd. I don't know if they'll get heat for that or not, but they basically said AJ worked less dates than Brock this year.
Yeah, I know, I caught that. But I mean, going back to before the Bella Twins came out, Paige, the last thing she said was, "How about we ditch?" I find this line to be important. How about we ditch the whole frenemies thing and actually become tag team partners? Now, I don't know if people know, read up on the social media stuff, but Paige and AJ have actually been campaigning on Twitter to find a new name for their tag team, which I don't know why they would need a tag team name. They could just be a tag team if they wanted, but I thought that was important that they said ditch the whole frenemies thing because that's kind of played out right now.
I guess I just kind of I knew the Bellas were going to interject themselves into the thing, and I felt the babyface did a decent job of setting them up for the heel interference. So I mean, I guess that's probably why I overlooked that. Sorry about that.
But yeah, I'm still thinking about that handshake. If Paige had frozen and turned around, that would have been I would have been okay, well, they're on the same page. But
it's one of those things that
no pun intended to Paige, obviously.
Yeah, we can't really describe it super well because it's a very visual thing.
It's very. You have to be very observant to notice these things.
Yeah, but if you've ever had an idiot friend who thinks they're funny and they're not, and they go to shake your hand and they do the whole too slow and they ruffle their hair, that's what she did instead of pausing mid shake and then turning around, kind of surprised that the Bellas were there. And that I think that's me and Nikolai saw it and we were kind of what was that?
And mind you, we've had no prior discussion on this. It is just two people noticing the same thing.
So I mean,
Bella twins.
yeah, the interaction with the Bellas here, where it was, I thought like basically they're really getting this whole original Bella personality kind of back. You know, they're really kind of tapping into like their original gimmick, which is just like we're hot chicks and we're hotter than the rest. We're the ultimate divas.
Everybody wants to be us.
Yeah, I mean that's their best gimmick. It works because people believe that that's really how they are, and I mean, not that like Total Divas is like a complete shoot, but I mean like it's not too far cry from reality, and there are elements of their characters that this character is closely resembled to, just turned up mega bitchly. And I mean, the best characters are like always true to like how a person is, you know. And you know, I thought, you know, as well as they did, the baby faces Paige and AJ didn't do the greatest job at coming back at the heels. You know, they kind of stuck to the we're freaks, we're geeks, and we're not ashamed of it because we want to be who we are. The only line that they really said that kind of flipped that freaks and geeks versus the hot chicks on its head was when, you know, at least we're not fake, you know, empty dolls like you. And I mean, like, yeah, that's probably been said, but like, at least added a little something to the babyface side of things.
Yeah, they were saying we're not afraid to be real women, or we are what real women look like. And this was a kind of a nod to, like I had mentioned earlier, with the whole campaigning to find a tag team name. And one thing that was kind of thrown out there was Freaks and Geeks, which they threw out there. And
yeah, the only problem with that is they'd probably get sued by Judd Apatow real quick.
Well, maybe WWE has the power to get through that, but I think that this was a good promo, and it actually, using the whole slogan, give divas a chance. I mean, it gave them a chance to have a promo and have some TV time to.
Yeah, they've been having longer matches. It's that Twitter thing trended. I mean, the first week it was like, I think like it was like 4 minutes instead of like 2. Second week it was a segment. Then last week it was 2 segments. So,
and not only that, but last week on Monday Night Raw, they had the first match of the show, not counting the promo at the beginning of the episode. I'm talking about the first match on Raw a week ago, and they had 2 segments. Like, they had a commercial break in between the match. So, you know, I'd say that's giving them a chance.
Yep. I mean, I think they're doing a better job with it. I don't know how much time they're going to be given at Mania, and I don't know what spot they're going to be put in. Depending on where the spot is, they're almost guaranteed to fail.
I think that
depending on how much time they're given, they're almost guaranteed to fail. I'm hoping that maybe they're given like maybe match 2 instead of like in between the 2 main events, and maybe stick somebody else in that awful time slot. Maybe just to try to give them a chance to get something.
Well, I honestly think that with the tag team title match and the Battle Royal both being on the kickoff show, that takes less time off the pay-per-view to give this match a chance to go long.
It's possible, but you know how things are. As we learned from that 1 year, that if somebody goes over time, guess which match is getting cut? It's the Divas match.
Well, the kickoff show is 2 hours long, so they have plenty of time to get those 2 matches underway. And actually, the tag team title match is going to kick off at 6 p.m. Eastern on the kickoff show. So you have a whole hour for 2 matches on the kickoff, and then you got the 4-hour WrestleMania for these 7 other matches. So I think this Diva match will actually have a chance.
I hope so.
And Brie Bella, I want to point this out. This is important to mention that Brie Bella mentioned that Nikki and her have had problems in the past, and she's done some hurtful things, if you recall, during the whole SummerSlam feud and their match after that, where basically Brie was Nikki's bitch for a whole month they actually pointed that out. Like, I love that they actually brought that up.
You know what? I did notice that. And you know what I thought? Like, that maybe they should have did this promo like a week ago. Like, everything that they've done for this build, push it back a week, so that this week on SmackDown they could have established maybe some tension between the Bellas. Because I thought that's where they were going during this promo. Like, when she mentioned that, I thought that they were kind of alluding to maybe not everything being copacetic with the Bellas. And kind of have like two tag teams that kind of have differences that are trying to unite to beat each other. And maybe we get some interesting interplay like during the match. I thought that's where they were going.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, like, you mentioned they could have brought that up on the show, but I think the past couple of weeks, they've actually been focused more on the Divas wrestling, which, honestly, I have to appreciate more than them even mentioning that, and I have no problem them doing this on SmackDown, because the past 2 weeks in a row on Monday Night Raw, we had AJ Lee versus Nikki Bella going 2 segments with a commercial break in between.
Could have did it on SmackDown.
And then on Raw, they had a Divas Championship match that went pretty long. And the fact that we are talking this long about this feud, I'd say that Divas are getting a chance.
Yep.
So, moving on, we have, what else? The main event of SmackDown, which was an 8-man tag team match. One of the rare occasions that we actually see John Cena, and John Cena is actually wrestling on SmackDown. So this is like a little small win that, you got some of these superstars that don't ever show up on SmackDown actually show up and have a match. It was John Cena, Mark Henry, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, Big Show, Kane, and Bray Wyatt. And this match went pretty long. It was, if you thought the Fatal 4-Way was hectic at the end, that was only 4 guys. You got 8 guys here. It got really hectic.
Yeah, I mean, for the majority of the match, Mark Henry was. This was really old school. I mean, really, really old school. I mean, the last match that I've seen kind of with this kind of format was like the 1992 Survivor Series, where there was like multiple teams on each side. Remember that? Where there was like 16 like different teams out there. There was like 8 teams on each side, and the heels kind of like beat up on Mark Henry and were kind of making quick tags and kind of had the ring cut off. Very old school setup, and they just kind of pounded on Mark Henry for a long time, and then they kind of did like the whole. He tagged in Cena, hot tag tease, and they actually cut off Cena, which I thought was interesting. I love when they do a false hot tag because the crowd goes up and it comes right back down. That's really old school psychology there. And Cena was willing to give the hot tag to Daniel Bryan, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
I would have thought that maybe Reigns might have got the hot tag.
Yeah, you would think so because he's got the main event at WrestleMania, but for the most part, it was Mark Henry playing the face in peril, and then you had John Cena get a little hope spot. He actually John Cena got the tag during the commercial break.
Yeah, we didn't actually see the tag, but I mean, he was, when they came back from break, he was in the ring. So, I mean, maybe they popped real big and maybe he got some offense and they just edited it out of the show. Because I mean, SmackDown is taped and they can play around with the match a little bit like that. So I mean, that's possible, cause, the crowd probably expects certain things from Cena, and maybe like for the live crowd, they gave like a Cena hot tag, and to just cut it out of the show to make it maybe flow better for what the match seemed to be, which is, like I said, like a very old school format tag match where the heels, like really did a really good job of beating up the baby faces and putting them in peril and setting up for the hot tag.
Well, the way I'm looking at this is WWE is recognizing the crowd response, and they already know how they feel about John Cena. I mean, that's just well documented by now. So giving the hot tag to Roman Reigns probably wouldn't have been the best choice. So Daniel Bryan would be the best choice.
You're on SmackDown. You could just sweeten the audio.
That is true, but I mean,
which they do.
You never know.
Reigns' entrance, anyways. So,
and I heard that too. I heard the audio of that. But like we mentioned, Daniel Bryan gets the hot tag, runs wild, Big Show knocks Roman Reigns off the apron, but yet Reigns comes back with a Superman
I do have a
punch to
minor
Big Show.
complaint about Daniel Bryan's hot tag. He kind of gets stuck in a lot of these matches. It's really not his fault, but I'm kind of over his comeback. He's got to figure out something different. I don't care about I'm running to the corner ropes and then I flip over the opponent. He's a really good wrestler. I get why the spot's there. It's a very WWE style thing to do, but it also doesn't hurt to change it up every once in a while. It would just be nice for him to throw something different for a comeback spot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be what he's going to be doing for a while. It just looks like it because look how long Cena's been doing the shoulder tackles.
Like I said, minor pick.
True. Actually, and I'm one of the few people in the world who still uses the WWE app during Raw and SmackDown. When Cena actually got the hot tag during the commercial break, which aired on the app, and he did, he immediately started doing the shoulder tackles, and when they came back on air, he did the suplex and the 5-knuckle shuffle. So, I mean, he's still going to do his
comeback spot, yeah.
Comeback spot as you put it, or as WWE video game puts it. But I mean, like I said, it's always going to happen, and I understand your gripes, and I have mine too as well. But
yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the video game thing, calling it that's actually like insider terminology. I mean, the hope spot, the comeback spot. Surprised they use something so insider on a video game. But I guess they know who they're talking to. Most of the internet fan base is what buys those video games.
Not only that, but you got Paul Heyman as a writer for the video game, so I think they got a good team over there.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That technically the comeback spot is insider terminology,
yeah.
And so I just wanted to say that I find it it's not just because I'm not referring to that just because it's on the video game. It's also called that in pro wrestling too, on the indie circuit and stuff like that.
No, I actually like that they called it that in a video game because then I don't feel so bad saying it. Actually, that's what happens. But this match ended with Roman Reigns hitting Bray Wyatt with a spear, hitting Kane with a spear, and
they had to make him look strong. They had to
yeah.
make him look strong. I mean, even though he didn't get the hot tag, they gave him a spot to shine in it.
And Big Show just got his ass handed to him at the end. He got clotheslined by Reigns, Mark Henry, attitude adjustment from John Cena, and the running knee from Daniel Bryan. All the faces got their best spots in at the end of the match, and they win. You have send the crowd home happy.
At the pinfall, by the way, so that ends his 2-match losing streak to Dolph Ziggler. The reason one, it's kind of cool because all the baby faces get their spot in, but 2, it explains, it puts Big Show over because that's what it took to put him down for the 3. So it's a good way to keep Show strong too, and explain a reasonable way that he could lose this match. And I thought it was interesting that they gave the pinfall to Daniel Bryan. Again, I thought maybe they would give the spot to Reigns, but hey, I'm happy because I'm more of a Daniel Bryan fan anyways.
And they send the crowd home happy too. And this is why I like the ending of this match. And I feel like even though it was half SmackDown, it still gave me this sense of, all right, this gets me excited for WrestleMania because of the performance that these guys put on the show before the big shows. No pun intended.
Like I said last week, if this was any other pay-per-view, and maybe you cut the Sting and Triple H match, I don't know if I'd watch this one. But it's Mania. I gotta watch it. I gotta see if maybe a match jumps out and really, really, really changes my mind. But I tried to love this Mania, and there's not a lot about that I'm super overly enthusiastic about.
Right, but and this is where I have to thank the WWE Network for existing, because I would not pay $65 for HD pay-per-view.
Oh no! Full price? No way would I do that.
$9.99. Take my money.
Yep. So that was SmackDown in a nutshell. Like I said, they basically just kind of did what they do for NXT takeover things. They kind of did a studio show and surrounded it with a lot of build recaps and stuff like that, and then backed it behind 3 live, taped segments from Tuesday, intermixed with that. As a show, yes, I understand going in like what it was going to be, but I still the matches weren't super great. They were okay. I would say this is probably like the worst SmackDown I've seen in quite some time.
Well, you're gonna get that. I mean,
yeah,
you're only gonna get 2 matches, and I kind of forgive it because it's
considering like what it is.
Right.
I would say like this was like a D minus. Just because there wasn't a lot of new intake, and there wasn't really a lot of stuff that I didn't like, or even like the recaps and like the match builds and stuff like that. There wasn't enough new material to really like spark my interest by and large. So, I gotta grade it just by as watching it live without including knowing that it's, WrestleMania weekend and stuff like that.
Right. And I forgive it because this was taped before Monday Night Raw, and you're not gonna have a full show of material because, they're just putting in 2 random matches and 1 promo segment because you don't want to have story develop on SmackDown before they tape Raw. But it's WrestleMania. I give it a pass because they're trying to build up for WrestleMania. It's all about being at the location that they're in for whatever WrestleMania it is. So
yeah, I guess I try not to do that. I try not to give a pass. I try to be objective, and I try to grade it as a reviewer. If you want me to grade it, But I certainly understand what you mean is you kind of have to sometimes. Some people feel like you just got to grade it knowing what it is. Sometimes I just choose to try to grade it for what as an me watching it, how I feel about it.
Right. Well, trust me, if this was a build up for any other pay-per-view, I would have given this a different grading scale. But as a whole, it's WrestleMania season. They just keep bringing us up to speed just in case anybody's not paying attention, which I don't know who isn't. But like I said, take it for what it's worth. It's not a full SmackDown. It's basically a recap show, but they're taking you to access throughout the show and showing you what people see when they're live there. And, it's good for what it is, but trust and believe. If it's a regular episode of SmackDown, we will be giving this a different opinion.
Yeah, plus I have to also preface it with the fact that I'm not super big on propaganda stuff from the get-go, so I'm almost always that guy who always kind of rolls his eyes at certain stuff where I know what they're trying to do and they're being really heavy-handed about it. That'll almost always kind of get me to be a little resentful on top of it.
I guess that means you're living up to the tagline that you gave in the beginning of the opening of the show.
Yeah, pretty much. When a bunch of people are running one way, I'm almost guaranteed to go the opposite way just to be on the other side of the room. And I'm usually the one yelling at the other side about how stupid they are and how they need to come to my side. And if they did, I'd probably go to the other side.
Well, that's good to know for the future. All right. That's going to do it for the discussion on SmackDown. It's all in all, like I said, as a WrestleMania hype show, take it at face value. The matches, I think, were good. You had the uber baby faces going over in both matches, and the Divas, give praise to them. They had time to get their promo in and get everything in. So for what it's worth, I think that SmackDown did a fairly decent job. And honestly, a much better ending on SmackDown than on Raw. Can't argue that.
No, I can't. But, that's not saying a whole lot.
But, so I think that's going to do it for SmackDown Rundown. Rob, I have to thank you again for joining me on this episode. Shout out to Jordan, who's been covering the hosting duties for me the past couple of weeks. So, Rob, I have to ask you, is there anything that you want to say or get off your chest or plug before we get off the air?
Oh no, you had to ask. I can't go there because like Kev would yell at me. Because we've already been talking for an hour, and I would go for like another 30 minutes.
Well, if there's a Twitter handle you'd like to plug or anything of the such,
catch me at Rob the Many. I'll go on my rant on Twitter, and you could be entertained by my rant.
Well, make sure you tweet Rob the Many and give him your opinions on what you think about SmackDown, or if you have anything.
Yeah, you can do that, but just know you're wrong.
Find me at Nikolai on Twitter, and don't forget to follow AngryMarks at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, AngryMarks.com. Make sure you check out the website for all the other news, rumors, recaps, articles, and podcasts every day that we have for you and your viewing/listening pleasure. And I hope you have enjoyed this episode of SmackDown Rundown. We have actually discussed quite a lot for such a small episode of SmackDown, but hey, that's what you get when you have a good discussion going. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I'd like to thank Rob for joining me this week, and of course, shout out to Killer Cat for producing the show as always here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Look out for the pre and post WrestleMania show, and that'll be the only plug I do for Angry Marks.
That's
You're
right.
welcome, Kev.
There will be a pre-show for WrestleMania and a post-show, so stay tuned to AngryMarks.com for more details. That's going to do it for the SmackDown Rundown. For Rob the Many and producer Killer Kev, this is Nikolai telling you, we hope you enjoy WrestleMania, and we'll see you next time.